Hello, lovers and friends, and welcome back to this juicy episode of Unabashed, where I've got something spicy for you all, a conversation that's often not spoken much about, even in our most intimate conversations. Dare I say that maybe your therapists don't even know that this is going on? This is where it can be that kind of taboo, and yet that level of transformation that's available. I want to welcome to the show one of my all time favorite humans on the entire planet, one of my male best friends, Jackson Hightower. Jackson Hightower, and you're going to meet him in a moment, is a dynamic CEO, founder of Natural Jackson, a trailblazing brand revolutionizing the way men approach health, vitality, and intimate wellness. With a rapidly growing community of over, you get that right, 800,000 followers. He has grown so rapidly. Why? Because of his really unique approach. He's accessible, he's fun, he's practical, and he's got all natural, sustainable solutions. We like that. We're all about the natural energy. So let's welcome Natural Jackson, AKA Jackson Hightower, to the show.
Hi.
Um,
That was the great intro. I love that.
yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
great humans deserve great intros.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
nice to see you.
So great to see you too. I'm still feeling really yummy and buzzy from our little intro, actually. So it's good to get
Yes.
into space. That feels
I've
really
done a lot
good.
of podcasts, and that was by far it's the best way to enter the space for sure. Actually, no one's ever done like an intro meditation or like a clearing or anything like that. So, um, yeah, it just gets you very present.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
I love it. And especially the
Well, thank you.
conversation we're having. You're, of course, my
Mhm.
pleasure. I love it. And it's a little behind the scenes because most don't know, number one, how to set a space or a container, right? And so being teachers in the space and wellness educators, it's great when you get surprised, right, with meeting someone and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
wow, there's a way that we can create space in even these podcast conversations. And I wanted to start off because that's a part of my signature way that I move around in the world. But you've got one of your little taglines that most people may not know, which I've always loved about you. And your tagline is I drum to the beat of my own march.
Yes, I do. I do.
tell, tell us a little bit about that. A little bit
Um,
about that.
yeah. So, I mean, the phrase normally is march to the beat of your own drum. And I saw it once and I said, huh, like I actually think that there's a better way to describe this, mostly based off of my personality. I've always been a little bit, I would say A, progressive and B, ahead of the curve in terms of the way that I think about things. Maybe it's my Aquarian nature, saying sort of like, why like this? Why does it have to be like this? Why can't it be like that?
Yeah.
And and yeah, I kind of, I'm a Sigma male. I like to, do my thing and like people can either come in or come out and come as you are. And like I don't care either way necessarily. Um, but yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
I wanted to start it off that way because I feel like it's a really good, like, again, indication of someone who's trailblazing, doing something different their own way. You're not doing it for to people please and just to get the likes. Like you've created something really amazing, which we'll get into in your own way, right? You're not doing things the way everyone's doing. So I love
Mm,
that because every time I see that on your page and I think about that's one of the things I also love about you is just like me, my Aquarius rising, we're
hmm.
rebels. We like to do things differently. We're into
Yeah.
the taboo. We like to think out of the box. If anyone's even putting a box around us, it's like, I'm going to fucking stomp on that and totally destroy
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
Let's remove the box and put it over there on the
Completely,
side.
completely.
Yeah.
And nothing more than put in a box than our sexuality, than our
Mhm.
intimate health, than also our expression in that. And so that also speaks so much to the confidence that you have in the work that you've done, which I think has also contributed to you growing so fast. And with that piece of being an alpha male, were you always this confident from a young age? Not always maybe the sexual expression, maybe it
Mhm.
was, But I'd love to know because they're getting a feel of you, of your rawness, your power. Like you are definitely an empowered masculine. It's a great example, as by the way, first male guest ever on the
Ooh, I love
episode.
that. Yes.
Right?
Hi,
Yes, he
ladies.
stands for it.
Yeah.
And as of now, I think he's single, ladies. But on the real side, speaking of confidence, there's a journey that people have with confidence. There's one in being confidence as a man or with sports, but there's one
Mhm.
being confidence in communication, which people
Mhm.
don't think about, like being confident in communication. And then there's confidence when it comes into the bedroom. So can you enlighten us a little bit about what's your journey been like with owning more and more of your confidence?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, on the athletic and sports side, there has been that there since I was very little, right? Started playing sports at 4. And so that helps, right? Because it transfers into other areas of your life in terms of the communication piece and speaking or whatever it was. Um, Having a voice, right, was important. I would say in my early 30s, I actually did an exercise because I realized so there's like the physical confidence, there's the intellectual confidence. One of the things I did, which was the most impactful in my life, was actually I did acting classes for a year when I was living in
Oh
Los
my God,
Angeles.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I realized was that my emotional vulnerability and comfortability with the vulnerability, which is really is like, are you confidently expressing yourself?
Yeah.
Wasn't there. I didn't have that. I'd always been sort of like needing to be right, needing to sort of project in a certain way and to have people perceive me as something rather than shedding the layers, right? Which is a lot of the acting stuff that I did. There's no cameras. It was just like, how do we get out of the skin that you're in and into peeling back the onion of like, what is the core, right, of who you are? So I think I really developed that through that year, of doing those acting classes and working on things in a different way and realizing that the like emotions are not perfect. They don't need to be perfect. They can't be perfect. They shouldn't be perfect, right? And so like it was like
Amen.
sports, you got to be level up in sports and communicating and articulating in business. You have to be a certain way, but with like the emotional side of things, it really opened me up a lot. Um,
Mm,
and so that then I sort of had like the trifecta, right? It was like those three aspects I think were really, really helpful in me owning what it is that I do now. And by the way, like when I started doing this, I wasn't nearly as comfortable in front of the camera talking about this stuff because it is very vulnerable and I share a lot about myself and I share a lot about my life and what I've been through to get to basically to show other men and to empower other men to be like, hey, this stuff happens to everybody. Like it's
yeah.
not, you're not alone and like it's okay. And like let's just acknowledge it so we can move through it. Right. So that was the real journey for me. And I think that, the stuff in with intimacy and with the bedroom, whatever, it takes reps, it takes practice, it takes falling on your face, it takes, willing to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, right? And then like, working with someone or having help or having support to then elevate through that level or that part where you're having a block. So I had a couple areas. I grew into the other ones, and now it's sort of like I know exactly that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I think that there's a higher purpose and a higher power that's guiding my journey. And like I always say, if I think what we're here to do is actually be like an expression of a higher power, right? And so whatever that is, some people are incredible athletes, incredible speakers, business people, mothers, whatever it is, right? Everyone's got a thing. Some people play on a much larger stage, but but that doesn't mean that people who don't aren't just as important or like they don't have a thing themselves. And so that's this, I think this is what my thing is. And so it was like getting those three pieces together and then realizing like, oh, let's do this on a more global scale, um, and in a service of humanity, right? I
Mm,
think that's another big piece that
yeah.
I realize that yeah, like this is, it's a business, right? But at the end of the day, it's actually like, how do we uplevel humanity, like one man or woman or relationship at a time? And moving into that stage of my life where, in your beginning, you're trying to learn stuff. And now it's like, okay, how can I be expressive to humanity? And I think that, I think it goes a little bit more smoothly when what you're doing isn't just for you. It's for a much greater purpose.
Mm. I love everything that you're saying about it because again, it's bringing so much more depth than what meets the eye if people
Mm,
were to just go onto your social media and
mhm.
project or label whatever they want. People have their own opinions on you. And I know you personally very well for a decade, and I know that it took a lot of balls and a lot of reps to get
Yeah.
as good as you are. And I want to pull a little bit of a thread that you mentioned that I don't think oftentimes is spoken about, which is falling flat on your face when it comes to the bedroom, where
Mm,
there is this belief, and I've seen it so much in all of my years of working with women and poor men. I've realized, like, and I say poor men, of like, there's so many men that have suffered at the hand of women getting angry at men for supposed to knowing how they're supposed to be in bed, for like, you're supposed to know how to touch me. You're supposed to know that I want this. Like
yeah.
all of these expectations. And men, I actually found out more recently at a Tony Robbins event when Tony asked how many men have been wounded by women's anger. And the amount of men that raised their hand in the room for me was just astonishing.
Wow.
And so I
Probably
want
most. Most.
most, right? Like it was at least 80% of men. And for me, it was like, wow, my heart went out because I hear on the feminine side, he doesn't do this and he doesn't do this. And I work with women to get them to, unravel their belief systems to be a more gentle, gracious lover and a guide. But I want to pull the thread on the masculine side because, like you said, there's all this pressure and all this expectation that you're supposed to know, like where the G spot is or the A spot or how to work a clitoris or give a cervical orgasm or breast. Like there's all this expectation. And
Yeah.
I want you just to shine light on, what was a moment for you when that expectation really like hit home, that you could have gone into shame,
Mm,
angry and mad at the feminine, right? And kind of play these games of power and control. But you shifted, right? If anyone's heard your story, there's a shift you made and you took it and you made it as fuel. And I think it'd be really
mm.
powerful to hear from you as a man and a masculine man what you did with feedback that maybe was like, oof, ow, wow, like deeper than it was
Yeah.
like a knife in the heart,
Yeah.
So will you share with us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, I was a freshman in college and I was on the baseball team and I was an athlete in school. And so athletes kind of hung out with other athletes, but I was intimate, with a woman who was a senior and she was also an athlete and, more experienced, like, 4 years into college and coming out of high school. And I really liked her. She was really cool. We had a great time together and it was a learning opportunity for me. But one of the things that happened towards the end of our, couple month foray was, she sort of like candidly said like, hey, like you're cool, you're fun, you're handsome, you're like good athlete, like you're a nice guy, but there isn't you don't really know how to bring it in the bedroom, you know what I mean? Like you don't really know what you're doing. Um, and
Did
she
she
said
flat out
it.
say that? Did she flat out say like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
what you're
yeah. She
doing?
said that, and then she started dating this hockey guy, and then I was like really upset about it for a little while. And like you're in college, and you're just like you're away from home for the first time, and I I was upset. Like your ego is hurt, right? You're like, wow, like I thought I was
Yes.
this young stud, whatever. Like clearly I wasn't.
And now she's with some other like
And I just,
stud athlete, all
yeah,
star, and it's just
yeah.
like, ah.
I was like, oh my God, like this is like terrible. Um, But what I realize, like, I've been an athlete my whole life. So the context is like I started playing sports when I was 4. I've had masters, I've had teachers, I've had coaches, I've had everything I've done. I've always learned from someone. And I had that moment then, and I said, like, she's probably right because I've never had
Mm,
anyone to teach me. I'm just like kind of like walking through a room, that's dark with a blindfold on, trying to get to the other side.
right.
It's difficult to navigate, right? I'd watched, I think back then, like maybe there was some porn on. I'm not sure exactly like what was happening with the technology and what was available, but there was probably some stuff that I was watching to figure out how to do different things. Like that's what young people mostly do,
Yeah.
or mostly did back then. And
People
I and
still do
I
that today.
yeah, well,
People
yeah, there are a
still
lot. We'll
do
get into
that
that.
today. I'm like, let's be real. That's where most education's coming from is porn, and we know it's
Yes,
not real, and we'll get into that.
yes.
But
Well,
yeah, I watched
and
porn to learn things myself in college,
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
you know.
And so I took the note and I realized that I needed to learn, right? If I was going to be excel in school and sports and all these different practices and hobbies that I had, and that's the way that you get better at things, then I was going to have to figure out doing the same type of methodology, right? Like finding teachers, courses, programs, books, whatever it was. And I spent, the next couple of years kind of like lightly dabbling, right? I didn't like dive in, but when I graduated college, it got more and I got more interested in it. And then I started reading David Data, which really brought me into another level of um understanding relationship dynamics and male-female polarity and things like
Mm.
that. So he was the entree for me. Um
I want to
and then
pause
it
you
just sort of
there. I
went.
want to just pause you there for
Yeah.
one moment. It's a question that maybe you've been asked, but I don't think most people will ask. What was the most primary present emotions when you started to kind of dabble?
Mm.
What was the primary emotion, if you can remember back then, that was present?
Aside from the curiosity, it was more like how do I describe it? It was like, wow, I found the people, right? Like I found people that do
Mm,
this. So like there are people, it is there, it is present. It was like, ah, like
yeah,
it kind of like I was like, oh, I found it, right? And
yeah.
now it's up to me to like navigate the path, after that. But it was very I'm trying to think of the word, but the sound is good.
The sound is right. Ah.
Yeah.
Well, that was really, there
Relieved,
you go. Yes,
after like
yes,
searching and trying to figure it out. Because back then, like there, like with this stuff was not on the internet. Like it was
yeah,
very,
it
very
was
hard to
not.
find. Very hard.
Yeah, really, really rare. And that's what I wanted to find out because, again, oftentimes we maybe just move ahead without realizing, like step by step, there are always these little nudges of something inside guiding us. And then when we find the jackpot or the treasure, there's always this, from my experience, not always, I'm not speaking universal, but for the most part, from my experience, there's a deep sense of relief, whether it's the goal or the
Mm,
partner or the next level, or when you find that like jackpot treasure, it's like, ah, oh, right. Thank you. I found it. It makes sense.
yes.
I'm not alone. I can belong.
Yep.
When I found a little bit of research on Tantra in college, it was like little bite-sized things. But I remember when I came across something that said in Tantra, sex is not bad and it's not shameful, and that women are a
Mm.
goddess. I almost literally peed my pants. I was like, thank you. Like, what? I knew something inside of me
Uh,
said that there was something else than what religious and my society had said. And so I always remember there was a level of relief and excitement, like
yeah.
ecstatic excitement when I had found
Yeah.
it. So I want to
Yeah.
ask you about
I
that experience as well.
yes, it's probably better, but relief was definitely it. And I'm like, huh, yes, excited. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's true. That was a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, just to
Brought me back.
reflect back, because so
Yeah.
many people are on their own journey as well. And to make it really relatable, people can read stats and stuff online all they want, but it's through storytelling and our own experiences that I find really people can relate as like, oh shit, like
Mm-hmm.
this guy is so advanced, this woman's so advanced. But guys, we weren't always so advanced. We were just blindly Googling, and experiencing the same type of emotions that we all experience as humans. We all experience curiosity and fear, shame, repression, relief, excitement,
Mm-hmm.
ecstasy. We are lucky enough to clear some blocks. And so I want
Mm-hmm.
to really humanize the experience before I go into a bit of spiritualizing the sexual arts. And I think
Mm.
that was really important. So thanks for
Yeah,
playing with me on that little bit of that thread.
of course.
And then you were mentioning the discipline as well. And, how did, once you found that, like, aha, eureka, and you started to go deeper into it with David Data, was your first book The Way of the Superior Man, which most
Mhm.
men find, or was it a different book?
Yeah, it was the way of the superior man, but then it was just like I read all of the books, and Blue Truth, and you finally got through sex, and then finding other people who were teachers and workshops and videos and courses and retreats and all the stuff that, I was like, I was just voracious, I was a sponge. I was like, let's learn as much as you possibly can.
And
You
were
know,
you in the closet about your journey or were you open about it? Because as those are on this journey themselves,
yeah.
from both of us being teachers, I know for me, I was more open about it, but I did
Mm,
receive and have received many times lashback for people being like, what are you doing? And this is a cult. And so I learned to kind of keep things more secret. But my first go to was like sharing it with everybody. I want everyone to know, you know.
uh,
And so then that didn't go as well. I had to learn to be the audience. But I'm curious as to like what was yours like? Were you sharing it on the rooftops like the way you are now, or was it something that was
definitely
under the
not.
chest in the kimono?
Yeah, it was definitely more close to the chest. It was a personal endeavor that I really enjoyed. I would go do them on my own time. I would go and but yeah, I didn't talk about it with really anyone. I didn't talk about it with my family. I didn't talk about it with my business partners. It was more just stuff that I really wanted to do, mostly because it was just like a personal thing at that point. It wasn't, I'm like, hey, I'm starting a bit like that. That was nowhere near my mind. And I wasn't sure what the reaction would be like. And so I really just kept it close. Yeah.
And so, why was this, of all things, like, why did you value this? Like, as men could value so many things in life, making money, building a business, like
Mm,
finding their purpose, being a monk in a mountain, right? Like being an athletic sportsman. Like men can prioritize so many things in their life, and sex could be more of like an afterthought or just a very basic need. If we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, on the very bottom of just a pure survival need for sex. We need sex and food and shelter. Three things:
mm,
sex, food, and shelter to survive. But for you, from what I'm hearing, is that this wasn't just under the bottom of Maslow's hierarchies of needs. To
mm,
really ascend, right? Ascend up, right? To like the love and the connection and even like the spirituality and the purpose, it had to become a priority, not just an afterthought or sometimes I kind of do it, as I heard you say, you went from dabbling into all in. I would love to know what was the shift that made the difference for you on why this became such a top priority when you could have prioritized
mm.
so many other things?
First of all, my personality type plays a role in it. I am an overachiever and a perfectionist, I think, by nature, and I have spent a lot of time valuing myself and my ability to like perform and do well, right? Whether that's good or
Yeah.
whether that's bad is just sort of like my background. Um, and I had a lot of the other stuff covered to some extent, right? The business stuff was always going well. I'd always find something to do. The sports and the health and the physical body, was always, relatively on point. Um, and I have been very interested in the capacity in which like two people can communicate and connect physically since I was a little kid. I mean, it's just something that I had a really strong desire for, and it gave me a tremendous amount of pleasure, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I always wanted to be really skilled at whatever it is that I do, whether that's sports or school or this or that, right? And so this was sort of like based on like my personality, my nature, and my love and desire for like connection and pleasure and intimacy with women. It just sort of like was always very present for me on the side
Mm.
of the business, right? And I always wanted to cultivate that. And it was the area that I needed the most work on. And so I said, okay, like let's focus more of our energy on this. So sure, there's the ego side of like, yeah, you want to be skilled as a lover and as a man, but B was like, I actually want to understand like how deep can it go, right? Like how,
Mm.
sex and sexuality is such a uniquely human thing. Like we get to experience and literally like interlock with another human on a
Yeah.
physical level, right? But also like on the spiritual level when you get to those places. Um, and so I've always just been enthralled with it, you know? And yeah, you could say like, yeah, you're a young kid and you're horny and this and that. Well, fine, sure, but like a lot of people are, like that's just how we grow up in this society. So all of those things combined really just allowed me to, I always wanted to put focus on it and attention on it because it's also, I find, the thing that everybody wants to do well and never has the real skills to learn, right? They don't have the teacher or the master or whatever it is. And so it's a lifelong practice, just like anything else. Like finding my flow state through intimacy and sexuality. I realized I was like, oh, this is where I'm in flow. Like there's sports flow, right? But then
Oh,
some people are artists and painters and this and that. And I was like, oh, like I'm in flow when I'm intimate with a girlfriend or a partner or whatever it is, a lover. That's where I find real states of bliss. So I was like, oh, I want to do this more and like get even better at it and more connected with it and find ways to bring my partner or my girlfriend or whatever it was into those experiences so that they could experience that as well.
I love what you're saying about the flow state. Like
Mm,
flow state through, sex and lovemaking and intimacy and connection. Like,
yeah.
absolutely. I think that's one of the highest, most divine gifts we can have as an experience in these human bodies. And I love the soulful place of where this is coming from because, of course, we want to like all have pleasure and have great sex and feel like someone tells us we're great in bed. But that
Mm-hmm.
isn't always enough to drive and motivate someone to want to take on the journey of looking at their insecurities or reorganizing their priorities and valuing cultivating more confidence and skill sets in that area. And I love what you're saying because if you look at it from a more soul line, a deeper layer, we all crave that. We all want to experience oneness. We all want to experience
Mm,
bliss. We all want to experience union. And oftentimes it's that those higher ecstatic states doesn't come necessarily from the outside. It really is through that self-cultivation practice. And the thing that I love what you said too is it's an invitation to invite someone to rise into that space with you. What
yeah.
a gift. What a
Yeah.
gift to each other. What a gift to the relationship. What a gift to humanity. Imagine if all of us were really well fucked and really well pleased and how much less war there'll be, how much more, support and collaboration and love and sharing on the planet there'll be because in a way it's like we literally fuck the pain out, we fuck the shame out, we fuck the anger out, and there's ways to use that sexual mastery at a higher level for transmutation. And
Hmm. Hmm.
that's definitely more of an advanced layer, which we'll get into in just one moment. But I want to ask your opinion for those that are listening, whether they're female audiences that are like, God, I wish my man would start to prioritize this way more, right? And maybe they've given him books or done things and he's just like got it on his nightstand. He isn't actively doing it because he's building his business or he's, wanting to focus on building a family or he's too stressed, with the work that he's running with his
Hmm.
organization. What would you say to those women? And even if they shared this episode with their partners, to the men that even are listening around the importance of making a shift in valuing this work? Why is it important for a man, like you said, not just an ego level, but from like a deeper soul level? Like, what would you say to them in regards of like making this a high priority and a value?
Yeah. Being good in business and making money and all of that is it's great. And it's like one of the things we as humans like to do here. We're a little like rats on a way trying to like build up our bag as much as possible. And it's cool. And to build a business and to help people and all that. It's a really great endeavor. I think that like when you recognize at the end of the day, right? At the end of your life, right? It's like, sure, you can look at all the things that you've done and all the accolades you've got, all the money that you've made and your houses and whatever. But like having really beautiful, intimate, soul level connections with another human is
Mm,
a very uniquely human thing, right? Like we have physical bodies, this go around. And so it doesn't need to be your first priority, but like being able to connect on a deeper level with another human and really show that you are there, that you are present, that you care about them, that you want to experience levels of excitement and pleasure with them. It's going to make your relationship better. I do a lot of, a lot of the feedback that I get from men who don't necessarily know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it is like, oh, like you're just like, I don't know what they say. They're like you're too focused on the woman, and I'm like, but you don't understand how women operate. If you put
Mhm.
love and intention and like what garden are you working on? Like where's your garden? You know? And so being able to like put love and intention and care onto a woman in the essence of like her pleasure is that if you understand how a woman operates from orgasmic pleasure, like her whole life just like it fucking expands, right? And as the man, you get a lot of benefits if you're
Yes,
able to do that, right?
yes,
And so
yes,
it's like give 50% more and you benefit 500% more. And so I
yes,
put it in these analogies. So it's like your life is going to be so much better across all areas. You'll probably be able to make more money in your business. You'll be a better father. You'll have more time. You'll whatever it is because you are able to provide an experience for your partner that is going to allow her to generate so much more orgasmic life force energy that is going to make your union, your family, your bond out of this world. So that's kind of like the mindset shift, right? It's like if guys
yes.
understood that a little bit more, because a lot of guys are like, oh, I'm gonna get mine, and then I'm gonna go and do whatever I'm gonna do. Cool. Like that's like 16 years old. Like people do that,
Yeah, yeah.
And like we need to like move past that. So it's a seeing the forest for the trees. Like you want to really understand why. Why are you doing this? Right. And then if you understand the why, you're able to like reel it back and really see that it's for your own benefit. We always operate out of self-interest, right? But like and it is self-interested in order and to give pleasure and to be able to like successfully, skillfully fuck your partner so that she's like wild. Like, have you ever met a woman who skillfully fucked that was a bitch? Like it doesn't happen all that often, right? She's glowing, she's happy, she's fun, she's got
Yep.
endorphins flowing. It's like we need a world like that because
Yes.
that is going to have positive benefits for the men. It's going to make their lives better and more full, more connected. And so that's kind of how I would say. And like you could buy 10 houses and all this, all the bags and this and that. It's just not the same.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
just not the same. It's a different level of connecting with another human that
I
expands the
love this
material. Yeah.
100%. I love the mindset shift. I mean, really snaps to you because this is really like what is needed from a men to men and also for women to understand the mindset shift. Because I always say my motto is our pleasure benefits the pleasure of all. For women's pleasure
Yeah.
benefits the pleasure of all. But the way that you were able to put words to the masculine experience on the other side of how men really experience the benefits of it. And I love what you said. It's there's a fullness because
Mhm.
what doesn't matter. You can have 5 homes, 10 homes, you can have the bags, the shoes, the this and that. But if you come home and your woman is brittle and dry and angry and resentment, your life's going to be a living fucking hell. She's going to be annoyed. She's not going to want to serve you. She's not going to want to cook for
1,000%.
you. You're going to be having bickerings, right? And therefore, because she's not well loved. And the best thing, I love what you said, you can do is love your woman well, because when you love your woman well, my belief is you initiate her and activate her into her sex goddess energy.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when she's in her sex goddess energy, right? And I help women do that independently,
Yeah.
but they still have to go into practice with the men in the bedroom. And if men are too busy watching porn or not in the mood or so tired, it's going to be harder for her to sustain that energy and that vibration because she has to always lead. But if
Hmm.
men were to adopt what you're saying here, right, which is so revolutionary, simple but revolutionary, right? To revolutionize her whole life.
Hmm.
Imagine coming home and you've got your sex goddess that is like ready to get on her knees and worship your cock from coming home and serving. How amazing is that going to feel? How
Yeah.
amazing is that when you're going to go take a shower? She's got the music playing for you. She's got the candle. She has a fresh towel for you every night when you go take a shower because she's so wanting to care for you the way that she feels deeply met and cared for by her man.
Yes. 1,000%. You said it perfectly. Perfectly.
I mean, it's a perfect play on what you were sharing. And I
Mm.
think it's really powerful to illuminate like the gap in why more women are not experiencing the type of lovemaking and sex they want. I mean, the statistics for women who are unsatisfied with their sex lives, it's like 70% of women are dissatisfied with their sex lives. And that means like very much so. About 80%, I think, are not even having orgasms on a regular basis. Like women are feeling very dry and depleted. And I always
Mhm.
say, like, take it into your own hands, ladies, and make sure that you are getting yourself juicy and spicy and wet and alive. But I will say it can be challenging when they want to bring that as a gift to their beloved or their relationship or their partner.
Mm.
And over time, they're not met because the man has been satisfied and satiated from jerking off at porn in the middle of his workday. Like, let's just fucking be real. Like, men are jerking off
Mhm.
in the middle of their workday at work on the computer. Joe Rogan talked about a statistic of like so many men during the pandemic getting fired from the workplace because they were actually masturbating on Zoom calls on live meetings. Like, that's how rampant it went. Men masturbating in meetings behind the
Wow.
screen. And so many men got fired as a result of just jacking off all the time and masturbating. And so that's kind of a hard thing for women to compete with because not only is there porn, there's social media. Like I let my fiance look at whatever he wants. I don't think porn is bad. I think that there can be a really good time and a place to use porn for play and for fantasy, or if you're, want to maybe play with the idea of exploring in a committed relationship, an orgy or a threesome, you can use that for visualization play from
Mhm.
time to time, right? I don't think it's a bad thing, but I do think that most people do not know how to use it as a proper tool for fantasy or play. And it's now something that has really fucked up a lot of the neurological systems and the dopamine reward systems in so many men. So when women do want to come to men and play or engage, they're already filled up from porn. They've already been depleted. They're already done. It's like, so I'd be so curious, like, what's your take on that? How can we start to remedy that? And what are even like what's going on with the guys?
Yeah. So you said a lot of things that are interesting. The first is when you're right, it takes two to tango. So if the woman is ready and vibrant and she wants to bring this type of energy to her man, but her man isn't part of the dance, right? He's like doing his own thing on the side. It's leaky energy, right? And so leaky energy is addiction to porn. And people don't really understand how detrimental it is on a mass scale for everyone in society. Because my stance is like no porn, and we don't need to go into that. But I'm talking to the guys
I'd
that are
like
doing
to
like
still know
three or
your
four times
opinion
a day.
on why no
Yeah.
porn at all. Like, I mean, I want, like, we're on Unabashed. Like, I want to
Yeah.
hear the
So
realness.
like the reality is this: it affects men much more than it affects women. And men have a massive dopamine. It's an addictive it's addictive like it is a drug. It has the same effect on your brain that it does when you're taking heroin. It's teaching men all the wrong moves. It's giving them anxiety. It's giving them like they're looking at these movie stars with like 9 inch, cocks, and like most guys don't have that, and so making them
Huge
feel
titties,
right.
huge titties.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it creates porn-induced erectile dysfunction. We've never seen more men. 25 to 35% of men under 35 have ED now because they're watching porn, not because of physical issues. So we're in a society, and by the way, the pandemic didn't help that. But
Right.
so one of my major platforms and like courses is like no more porn, right? And like unless you can use it effectively and within reason, and you don't have any issues in your sex life, and you can get an erection okay, and all this sort of stuff, my policy is just like put it away. It's not benefiting you at this stage of your life. Maybe if you mature and you get past that stage and you're fine and you're good and you and your wife want to watch something, or want you and your girlfriend want to watch something occasionally, I'm down with that. But I'm not really talking to those people with the porn. I'm talking to like the billions of men who are very addicted to watching porn around the globe. Mostly because like all of my DMs, like 25 to 30% of my DMs are men who are like, hey, I'm addicted to porn. I'm so ashamed of myself. I don't know what to do. I can't stop it. It's ruining my life. My girlfriend broke up with me. I can't get it up. It's nasty. It is nasty.
Wow.
And it's silent. You can't tell unless you're having sex with a guy, whether he's addicted to porn,
Mm.
for the most part, right? It's not like
Yeah.
drugs or alcohol or anything like that. Like unless you look at someone's search history. So for me, I'm just like, cut it. It's also my community is mostly people, that are trying to like level up themselves. But
No, and that makes absolute sense. I love the
yeah,
distinction and I love like your stance on it's like a detox. Like cut
yeah,
out the drugs. Like you've got to detox it from your system 100%.
exactly.
So from that
Exactly.
angle and that perspective, I also 100% agree. It's great to
Yeah.
do a detox of porn, also of sex at times. Like
Yeah.
it's great to do cleanses and detoxes.
Yeah. But to get back to your question, you've got if the guy is also focused on, swiping on social media and OnlyFans and porn and all this sort of stuff, his energy is leaking. And so a man with leaky energy isn't a powerful man. A man who doesn't have a strong and healthy connection to his own sexual energy is really not going to be able to bring that in partnership.
Mm,
Guys who are addicted to porn and leaking energy and watching all these girls on the internet doing whatever they're doing these days, like it's not going to be conducive to a healthy relationship with your partner sexually. And
right.
so, guys come to me like, oh, I want to learn this move. I'm like, we're not going to do the move stuff. We're going to do like, let's get you connected to yourself first, right? Like, are you watching porn? Are you
Yeah.
masturbating? Do you know how to hold your energy? Do you know how to do a fucking Kegel? Like, let's get you set up so that men, first and foremost, have a healthy connection to their own sexual energy. And then they can, that's the first foundation. And then it's like, okay, then we can move on to the other stuff, right? But
How
like,
many
let's
men know how to do a Kegel that come to you? What's the percentage of men that know how to do a Kegel?
I would say like 50%, maybe like 35 or 50% know what Kegels are. Most guys think they're for women. And it's actually the most beneficial exercise that a man can do, both for lasting longer, for erectile dysfunction, and for prostate health. So it's
Mm,
a very, it's literally when a man goes to urinate and he has to stop midstream,
yeah.
it's that whole position. And then there's like, I have a course where I teach guys like the breathing techniques that you can do with it and like the different cadences. It's like going to the gym. Like there's reps and there's sets that
Yeah.
you can do to actually activate it so that it's stronger because it's the thing that controls when you're going to go and if you can control it to go even longer. And so there's a lot of stuff that comes with that. But but that's what my focus is as a business is like how do I get the men to level up a little bit, right? To like start thinking about this stuff a little bit differently so that they
Yeah.
can meet the women in their life where the women are at. Because right now I think that we at men as a society, like there's the lowest levels of testosterone, lowest levels of male fertility, highest levels of depression, highest levels of suicide. The least amount of like higher education for men right now. So like men are experiencing a massive, massive, massive low point, massive low point. And there are a variety of reasons. Porn is one, the chemicals that are in our crops is one, plastics is one, anything that is affecting our hormones as men and capping our ability to produce testosterone because testosterone is not evil. It's not steroids. Testosterone is like the most important hormone for masculinity. It's drive, it's will, it's determination, right? It's what gets you up in the morning to be a good dad, to be a partner, to be an employee or a business owner. So like we're experiencing, women are battling a lot right now. And they're like, we're all the good men. It's like, well, the men are being decimated by porn. They're being
Mm,
decimated because their dopamine is affected negatively. They're being decimated by atrazine and they have way too much estrogen in their bodies, right? Like men aren't supposed to have a lot of estrogen in their systems, but they do,
right.
and so, I would say like understand what the man is going through, be compassionate because that's how women generally are, but then also like give him tools and show him people in the world that he can go listen to or talk to or books or whatever it is to start living a healthier sort of life. But but it's tough. And I understand that women are in situations where they're like, hey, my man never approaches me, he doesn't want to go down to me, he doesn't want to do this and doesn't want to do that. How do I make him? And that's a tough thing to answer. I'm like, I don't know how to make someone do anything, but you can understand where he's coming from and some of the factors that are taking his energy away from you. And you could start to work on those I can't tell you how many women DM me and they're like, "Yeah, I was in a relationship and everything was good at first, and then all of a sudden, we did started not having sex as much, and then I felt unloved, and then this and that, and I found out he had a porn addiction, and then they broke up, and so it's tough. It kills relationships, kills.
That was definitely something I personally have experienced as well,
Mm,
which is why I'm so against pornography. So my college boyfriend, who I was with when I
mm,
was outside of college, and him and I met, and it was like really spicy and really great in connection. And then slowly, it's crazy, but slowly he just started coming over every night to, like, every other couple of nights, and then would say he's going to spend more time at his home with his brother because they're playing online video games. Like, he masked it under video games. I'm like,
mm,
I'm not going to, I wouldn't think of questioning, like, and I say this because, as you said earlier, to pull that thread, it's something that's going on in silence. There was no way that I could have known what was going on. I thought it was video games. And then I thought it was he was feeling really tired. And I thought he was feeling maybe really stressed as he
hmm
was going for, his master's to be a CPA. And it wasn't until Christmas time, and we were dating for 2 years, and slowly, he wasn't going down on me. He'd get mad at me when I would dress really sexy. He like called me a whore and a slut when I like surprised him. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this was someone who really shamed my sexuality, who called me all sorts of horrible names once he started to pull away. And of course, I see now later it was his own shame and
mm,
projection and shadow. So, but it was powerful because for me, I couldn't understand why he was pulling away or being less engaged until I went over on Christmas Eve, and I went over to his house, and he was
hmm
there with his brother, and they're playing video games, which I was like, okay, cool video game. He left the computer and he went to the room to play drums with his brother. His dad is like a famous drummer. And I was like, babe, let me check on something, thinking I'm gonna look for like Christmas like activities. Going online, something pops up. I'm like, what is this? It says Jasmine is live. I said, Jasmine is live. What the hell is this? I clicked it. It takes me to this porn site or live chat site called Live Jasmine.
Oh
And
my
he's
God.
in a sex chat room paying, or I don't even know how this thing works, with like literally these live chat porn bots. And literally I found out that he had two girls that he was talking to online, continuously engaging in. And that's where he was spending all that time and energy, and made me feel like shit about my sexuality because I was expressing it. And I don't know
Yeah.
if it's something you've
Wow.
experienced, but for me, it was devastating. I
Mhm.
felt like as a woman, I wasn't good enough. Like, even though I know I'm always great in the bedroom, I've always been told I'm amazing and I'm an amazing lover, and I am for sure. But when that happened, it was so confusing because it was like, wow, if I'm giving so much, why would he go to porn? Why would he be in these chat rooms? And then why would he, which I realized later, be shaming me? And it's because there's so much shame around sexuality that it's silent and it's hidden. And
Yeah.
then people can just, from that shadow, project it onto other people because they don't want to bring it out. And so, that was something where, like, to your point, I experienced that myself. And I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
very anti video games, anti porn, for so long. I was like, you play video games? I'm not going to date you. And actually,
Oh,
still
wow.
this day, when I was dating before I'm now engaged, as you know him, I would not, if a guy told me he spends his time playing video games, I would not see him again. It's a no go for me. No go.
Yeah, I with you on that one. I didn't know that. Wow, that's a wild story. And I think it's not
That's the
too
first time I've shared
dissimilar.
that story, actually.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I think, because you have a lot of, female listeners, but, you know, if you're in a relationship and a partnership with a guy and he's not trying to get it on with you, then there's a problem. He's getting it on somewhere else because guys are just made, we're horny, we get excited. So like he's going to be releasing that energy somewhere. whether
Yeah.
it's porn or whether it's with wherever they go to do that, or whether it's with another person, or I don't know. But most oftentimes it's with porn. And so it's like you're releasing your life force, you're releasing your energy, you become a sleepy puppy, you become demotivated, and you don't have the energy. And I went through this when I was more addicted, I guess you could say, to porn, about 12 or 11 or 12 years ago, right before I stopped. I would find myself watching porn instead of being with my partner, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Why am I doing this? And it's because porn is just so pervasive and it's so addictive, and men don't realize it, right? So it happens a lot. But I was getting my sexual fulfillment, but I wasn't getting it with my partner. And so I said to me, I was like, something was wrong here. That's not the way it should be. But yeah, like if a man is not getting it with you, he's doing it somewhere else because that's just how we are.
What's your take on, and I'm really curious to find out because you watched porn a lot and I love your take. I'm also curious from a masculine's perspective of like, what if the man starts to stop watching porn and comes to his woman and she's not in the mood or she's not ready. And so it's easier for them if they're in the moment to want to
Mhm.
release, to go to
Yeah.
porn, right? I'm not sure if anyone's asked you that, but how would you navigate that? Because again, we know women take, 20 to 40 minutes to turn on. We might want to fuck and have a quickie, but we'll still need some sort of verbal foreplay, something to build up a little bit to get us juicy. But for
Hmm.
men, you guys can be like, I'm hot, horny, I want to put porn on, I want to, knock it out and be done.
Yeah.
What's that like for a man if he's going to start to go to his partner, but she's not ready in the moment? Like
Hmm.
he's so used to like releasing and releasing. It's like talk about the neurological and the physiological shift that a man's going to need to go through, or he has an opportunity to go through, and
Yeah.
not just like give up or feel defeated or defeated if now he doesn't get to just bang his girl right on the fly. Like tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
That's a really great question. So men, what I share with men is that like men and women are built differently. We are physiologically very different. Men are like fire, right? We're ready, we're hot, we want it now, etc. And women are not. Women are like water, right? There needs to be, the pot needs to be boiling for a little bit until it gets to the bubbling point, right? And so as a man, fortunately or unfortunately, it's your responsibility to get good at the non physical foreplay, right? Like the texting, the communication, like the whatever your partner's love language is, like doing that. Like we as men need to work hard and to understand that like our partner needs certain things to keep that engine lubricated, so to speak, throughout the day, right? And to also know that like just because you're ready, she may not be, right? She has 4 cycles in her month, and like some of them are pretty challenging where she feels bloated and out of, if she's in her menstrual period, or sometimes where she's like super ready to rock and roll when she's ovulating, or right before or right after that. So we need to be more mindful. And I think part of this whole business of like sex education and like what I'm trying to share with men is that like women are different. You can't just go into the experience thinking that it's the same as you. You have to use foreplay, physical touch, massage, rubbing her shoulders, touching her hair, coming up behind her, showing her your physicality and your force. And it doesn't mean that you get to like do it right away, but like, yeah, maybe you have a hard on and you want to like get behind her and like in the kitchen and she's cooking something like that. She feels it. She knows what's going on, right? So like but also being patient,
Yes.
right? And sometimes we're not always patient, right? And so we need to understand that women operate differently, that we need time, but we also need to spend more time on some of that stuff than we normally do, right? If we're just like, hey, I want it now, and it's very one-sided. And by the way, sometimes that's okay. Sometimes, that's the way it works. And it's like, oh, maybe, I need a blowjob or I need a release or I need a
Yeah.
hand job and like communicating like, hey, babe, like I'm really
Yes.
feeling like I need to release right now. Like, can you help me in some way? Right? It doesn't always have to be
Yes.
sex. It can be something else. But we also need to communicate, like, hey, babe. And it's not just like, I need this, like, do it now. You just communicate in a way that's like respectful. It's like, you're really turning me on right now. Or like, this is like getting me super excited. And using that indirect kind of language, which is more of the feminine women receive that better, right?
Yes.
When they're in those situations. So, communication, patience, hitting those buttons, physical foreplay, non-physical foreplay, and understanding that you're not the women they're built different. They're not working with the same stuff that men are working with, right? And so
Mhm.
if you just expect to like green card go, like that's just not how it is. And I think if you understand that, then you can intelligently play the game, right? And like what are the ways that my partner really gets turned on? You know, like massaging a woman's body. Like I've never met a woman who didn't want to get a massage,
Mhm.
or to like, or just to be like cuddled or held or whatever it is, get in bed and just like lie in back, spooning, your partner and breathing with each other. Like sounds lame, but it's really like it settles your nervous system, and you're connected and your bodies are touching. So it's stuff like that, that I think
Yeah.
is important for men to recognize is that they have to work a little bit. And with porn, it's so easy, they don't have to work. And so I think that's the biggest issue is like, well, if you want to have a great sex, like you have to put in effort.
Yeah.
You can't just like turn on the thing and boom, 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 I'm gonna go do it and then I'm done. It's like
Yes.
you got to put an effort. This is another human, that you're dealing with.
I love that you named that because that was the full circle moment. It's like it is men are happy to put work in at the gym. They're happy to put work in their business. Put the work into your woman.
Mm,
Put the work into it and find the pleasure in putting the work in, and it's always like, wow, you can look at yourself and be like, ooh, I did that, right? You can make it a fun game where if you see your woman not really turned on and you just kind of take a snapshot and you go in and you tickle her a little bit there and give her a little bit there. And even if she's not like, fuck me now, you can walk away and take another snapshot and see, oh, is she smiling a little bit more? I did that, right? Like
mm,
men love appreciation and being adored, but also how often do you find, and maybe you can tell me a little bit more, men are actually self-prizing themselves? Like, how often do men actually like self-acknowledge and celebrate themselves? Because women, I have them do that all the time. Like, what
mm,
I love about myself, what I appreciate in myself, like, yeah, I did that, right? We track it, we build ourselves. But I find that guys, number one, my experience, need more reassurance from women that they're doing
mhm,
good, that they're doing a good job. And I also find, to your point of like helping men love themselves and reconnect to themselves, that there's actually like an epidemic of men that don't really love themselves and speak really harshly to themselves, especially
mhm.
as peak performers and high performers. It fuels them to fucking go for it. But does that same approach work when it comes to like being a cheerleader for how they're showing up with their women?
That's really interesting. So I think I probably have fallen into that category where it's like I'm hard on myself, right? Like I push myself and like how often am I spending time acknowledging like here's how I feel, here's what's going on, how did this make me feel, etc. We as men don't do that a lot, right? We don't tap into our emotional ranges as often as women do. And I don't think our emotional ranges are anywhere near as developed and as vast as women's are. Um, but yeah, I mean that's a huge part of it too, which is like to under women do need to understand that like men need some more ego stroking probably than it would normal would be, right? Especially as it relates to like sexual health and prowess and skills and things like that, right? Men are very, very,
Yeah.
very sensitive in those areas. Regardless of like how well they're hung or this or that or what it doesn't that none of that matters. It's just, navigating a woman and understanding a woman, it's a complex thing. And women are beautiful creatures and like this chaotic rainbow of like love and energy and all these emotions. And like men don't experience a lot of that. So we don't know how to navigate all that all the time. And so my feedback for what I share with a lot of women is, like find something that he does well and like stroke his ego, like let him know that he's doing something well, right? And maybe doing it more often than is necessary, but letting him know that like you're there because they do need assurance, right? They do need to know like, hey, I'm
Yes.
doing good. Like men need to feel needed, right? In some
Yes.
capacity as like a standard rule of like masculinity, we need to feel needed, or wanted, right? And especially in this particular area. So being compassionate and kind when you're sharing that with men is key. Using like we as opposed to like, well, you know what I mean? Like making it more of like this is an us thing, right? When women are communicating with men and men, finding ways to like realize that they may not need as much as they think that they do. It's like, hey, I'm enough, right? Like I'm enough, I'm doing well, you know.
Yeah.
But in this realm, and it goes back to this whole thing about like there's no sex education. So it's like
Yep.
men are trying to do this stuff and they're trying to do all these things and they want the appraisal and they want this, but are they putting in the work? Do they understand a
Right.
woman's body? Do they understand a woman's anatomy? Do they understand what a G spot is? Do they understand how it needs to be touched or licked or stroked? Like, have they put in the effort or they just expect it like it's just going to come? Right?
Right.
No, no pun intended. Like it's just
No
going to
pun
come to me, and like I
intended.
just, I just downloaded all this guru sex stuff, right? And so that's part of one of the why I went on my journey was like, well, no one's gonna, I gotta learn, right? I have to
Yeah.
learn it somewhere, right? And then when you learn, you develop more confidence and you develop more assuredness and you get more grounded and rooted in your sexual capacity. And so that's some of the stuff that I'm teaching is like, guys, like, how do we get more rooted in our own sex life, right? Cutting out the leaky energy. And
Yes.
then you need less and less assurances, right? As you get more confident, you know?
Love that. And it's
Yeah.
more self-love to your point. That's why your work is so important. It
Yeah.
looks different, the self-care and the self-love, than maybe the feminine sexual journey. It's, of course, we're different beings. And I love the fact that we are different beings. Like that's why
Mm,
there's polarity, but
yeah.
can we learn how to nurture each other as we're learning like the configuration of how we dance together and how we fit together, and then how do we cohabitate and operate together where both are feeling met and both are feeling compassion. And that's where the women need to do the work as well. Like
Mhm.
it's not a one-sided thing. It's
Yeah.
women to do the work as well, to be curious, to be more receptive. And if their man is showing up more and more, even with a little bit, it's like, acknowledge. And I love what you said, stroke his ego. It's not a thing of like, I'm this badass bitch and I'm the fucking prize and the guy needs to win
Mm,
over, when he needs to take me out on dates and he needs to like bow down to me because there's just like
right.
this over feminization. That's
Yeah.
not cool. Like I actually value myself, that I have learned to be a very powerful and also very slutty submissive partner. And like that's something that I value. I love to be
Mm,
submissive. I love to like take care of him and make him feel like the fucking man. And every time he takes the trash out, I tell him he's my trash hero. And every time he does something
yeah.
dirty, like take something dirty outside of the house, I'm just like, baby, thank you so much for doing that, so I don't have to do it. Like men want to feel like the hero, to your point,
Yeah.
and that's going to give them more vitality, and that's going to give them more life force and more purpose, and want to give to you in more pleasure. And I would love to kind of go a little bit of stroking the ego, no pun intended, but like when it comes to like even cock stroking, and like how men are so also used to touching themselves and coming in a certain way and a certain angle at a certain time. Like this is a thing. Most women may not know this, but men are particular with where they come and how often they actually come. And
Yeah.
it's wired. And so, what are some practices and ways that you also in your education and your courses, and I think also in your coaching, that you give to men as like masculine embodiment, or an erotic arts practices? What are some of maybe the practices or guidance that you would give men
Mm,
to
yeah.
unravel?
Well, the first thing, is the habituation piece, which you talked about, which was like, I need to use this oil and this hand and this angle and this thing, and I need to go this fast. If you only do that, right, you're going to need only that in order to release at some point. And especially when you're watching porn, there's also the visual cue. And it's like, oh, I'm into like, blonde Asians with blonde hair and big boobs, right? And some women say to me, "My man can only come while watching porn, and he has to watch this particular video until he can release it." I'm like, "Wow, like that's wild," and it's so specific.
Yeah.
So the first part for men is like detangling that piece. The second is using variation, right? Like using different hands, like making sure that there's different strokes, and like working it in different ways. There's exercises that I teach guys that they can do, to develop better connection to their cock. There's obviously the Kegels exercises, there's breathing exercises. And so what I share is like it's always about variety. If you do one thing the same way, you're going to need that the same way. And also, if you really like that, how do we effectively communicate that with our female partners? I would say one of the things that some feedback that I've gotten in the past from, partners or girlfriends, was like, oh, you really know what you like, and I like when you communicate that to me. Because sometimes women really like that. They want to be
Yeah.
told, oh, okay, great. And
Yeah.
and sometimes it can be off-putting if they're like, no, I know what I'm doing, and I'm like, yes, and also I really like this, you know.
Feminine insecurity around
Yeah.
sex comes
Yeah.
out too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And so being able to communicate like compassionately and respectfully with a woman in the space about what it is that you do really like. Some men have more sensitive penises than others, and they need a softer touch. They need it to go slower because they don't like it when it's too fast. Some guys like it really hard and really fast. So knowing what it is that you like, not habituating yourself to one specific thing, which creates like more variation and more variety in your sexual experiences, and then being able to effectively communicate when something is that you really like something versus like, hey, I'd love it if you actually tried this, or this is something that I really enjoy here. Has been so it's about communication, right? And non-habituation.
That's really great. And that
Oh.
comes back to like, again, the confidence in communication, right? It's like being confident in your communication, which is a
Mm.
skill set, right? You continue to develop that. And what would you say to those? Because I know you also work with and teaching around like edging and also growing your size, which is
Mhm.
possible to do.
Mhm.
And I want to ask just briefly about that before we start to wind down a little bit is like, for some, like you were saying, for some men, they're used to it all being a certain way, but some are open, right, to the variation. But what if they're having a harder time enjoying it or embracing it, right? And that's when I would say, like, and I'm curious your take, like with my female clients, like start to develop an edging practice with him, because if they're used to going fast and hard in porn, they're probably going to come. I think the stats show anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, like when men are actually inside of a woman without being
Mhm.
trained. I can't tell you the countless amount of women that I've helped who come to me saying that their men are great in the foreplay, but the moment that they like enter inside of their body, it's like 3 minutes and they're done. It's like not even 5 minutes and they're done. Like they'd be so lucky if it even lasts 7 minutes. And as we said, it takes a woman at least that 20 minutes to like really get her pussy engorged to then like have the G spot, even like, because the G spot, you can't just find it. Like you got to touch and massage to like get it to engorge and then become the G spot. And
Mhm.
it's like, if you want to give her a chance and also give yourself a chance to become a better lover, it's like, what would you say in regards of maybe adopting or the benefits of men to adopt, an edging practice or ways for them to last longer and feel even more confident about their actual cock?
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot there. So
I
number
know.
one, but no, it's good. It's good. So number one, there are very basic exercises that all men should be doing, regardless of their age, right? And in order to last longer and to be more connected to that energy down there, right? One is the Kegel. The Kegel allows you to control the PC muscle, which is the one that's responsible for when it is that you release, essentially. So when a man gets to a certain level of pleasure and excitement, there's like a no turning back point, and he's not going to be able to stop. So it's about finding what that moment is. I usually call it like an eight. It's a magic eight. It's like an 8 out of a 10. 10 means you've come and zero means you're flaccid. Um, Kegels is important. Edging is important. And edging is a practice that men can do on their own during self-pleasure, where they are, masturbating.
With no porn though, with
Right.
no
No,
porn,
no porn. Static
right?
images is great. Like just nothing that's like
Okay,
hardcore.
so they can
Yeah.
use static images and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
they is that okay with visualization? Like how
Yeah.
would you recommend like someone doing that?
So what I tell people is the most damaging is hardcore video porn to your
Okay.
brain in terms of neuroplasticity. Everything below that has less and less and less and less impact on your brain. For instance, when Playboy came out, Playboy was a naked woman on a page. You still have to use a tremendous amount of brain power to like come up with a scenario that's going to turn you on and like get you excited so that you would release.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you look at Instagram or TikTok or whatever, like there's a lot of softcore porn out there anyway. You can just flip through and find something that you probably like. And again, as long as it's not pornography where it's hardcore, like intercourse that you're watching or sexual acts, it's better than that. So I always say, like, just if you can't stop cold turkey, just de-escalate the level so that you use more of your mind. The more of your mind that you have to use on your own, the less neuroplastic changes will happen. So if you are edging and self-pleasuring, you're basically going to explore with yourself and you're going to get to that 8 out of a 10, right? And the guy knows there's a certain point in his experience with himself where it's just like some button goes off, right? It's like this ejaculatory release point, and he's not
Yeah.
going to be able to stop. So you have to find where that is, and it takes time, it takes practice. You're going to find where that is, and you're going to stop like a half a point below that, right? So if that's an 8 out of a 10, you're going to start stopping at a 7.5, right? And then
Mhm.
you do breathing exercises, and I have this thing where there's a bunch of stuff that you can do to get your mind out of that I'm gonna come point.
And
So
that's in your course. They can do that in your
yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a
Great.
whole video series about like how do you edge and the breathing things that you do and you do, like eye rolls and tongue things, and there's a bunch of stuff that you can do to actually like get your brain out of that mode of I'm going to release. So
Good.
Kegels and edging are key. The more you do on your own, the better you're going to be with a partner. What I always share, especially with women, is women also need to realize that going hard and fast, there's just going to be like there's a point of diminishing returns where it's like you're going to enjoy it for a minute, but if he's not able to work with you on that and work at that level with you, then you need to learn how to actually go slower. Because
Yes.
women, I think, are habituated to when they watch porn is like hard and fast, right? And yes, of course, it feels good to go hard and fast. But I think that if more women, if they wanted to have better experiences with their men, they need to also recognize where their man is at, right?
Mhm.
Men respond to friction. And so it's like if there's a tremendous amount of friction, a guy is going to release. I don't care how good you are. It's just like you can't just go really fast for 30 minutes. I mean, maybe like a couple people, but it's just hard to do, you know? And so having that variation in your sexual experience where the woman, if she's on top and she's riding, like she's able to like slowly control, right? And like breathe with the guy, and I always tell men, like, you need to learn how to breathe, brother. Like if you're up here, like top half of the lungs, you're not gonna be able to go. You're not gonna be able to last longer. You got to breathe through your diaphragm, right? And you have to focus on, something, right? Like sensei focus. Like there's a lot of things that men need to do and then develop that strong PC muscle. But again, it's about practicing with someone where you're on the same page, right? And so as a man, telling women like, I need you to slow down a little bit, right? Slow down and like feel me, be present with me, right? What does it feel like to just come down and like just sit on a cock and just feel the cock? Just feel it. Don't move.
Yep.
Just feel it, right? Because we don't, I don't think either sex like spends a lot of time just, oh, okay, that feels good. And then slowly starting to move into whatever it is that you're going to do. But just don't go to the rabbit right away. Like don't that movement, it's not going to be helpful for your guy. If you want your guy to last longer, you got to slow the hell down and then
Hmm.
work with him on breathing. So he's got to do his work separately, and then you got to do your work. And then when you're together, you have to really be on the same page and communicate with each other about what you both want and need. Um, and and as a woman, if you really need, hard fast, that's great. There's a time and a place for that, but it may not be immediately when you have a new partner or when you're with your partner. You need to work with them on it. So it's really a dance. It's a beautiful tango.
Mhm. I love what you're saying, and there's a really beautiful piece. Just that one little wrap, a little wrap around it is, like you said, the woman sitting on his cock, getting comfortable of what that feels like inside of her body, and making it okay that neither of you are having an orgasm or like a release.
Yeah.
That's one of the beautiful things, even with Tantra. It's like Tantra is not all sex, but there's like a nice 20%. And the whole thing
Mm.
around staying present and aware with whatever sensations, whatever experience you're
Yeah.
having, and letting go of any goal. It doesn't need to go anywhere. And I think both men and women could adopt a practice of being just enjoying and milking and experiencing whatever is happening in the present moment. And that's what I think is really revolutionary as well is, when we go really slow, I know for women, they can kind of get in their head or check out and go into the laundry list or to-do list. Or I know that women have said to me with feedback that their guy, when they go really slow, kind of checks out or loses his erection and doesn't feel as sexy. And so I love what you're saying. It's a dance. The more you practice that, the more you're present,
Mhm.
the more you it's basically you have to choose to be engaged. You have
Yeah.
to choose to be engaged.
Yeah.
Like there's no other way to do it.
Yeah. The presence when you're with your partner is the most important thing. It's not the moves, it's not the this, that, this action, that action. It's not that spot, this spot. It's literally like how present are you with your person and what's going on, and can you dance with each other and communicate with each other vulnerably in the most intimate of moments where you're inside of another woman if you're the guy, right? Or as a woman if you are being filled by a man, right?
Mhm.
Like energetically, but also physically, physiologically with his cock. And it's such, I mean, it's just like I always talk about this of like, it's such a beautiful experience, it's such a beautiful experience. So I said, like, slow the fuck down.
And
Both
it's
of
so
both of
fun.
y'all.
And
Yeah.
it's so fun. It's
Yeah.
literally like adult playground.
Yeah.
It's so freaking fun. Why are we rushing it? We work so much all day long.
Yeah.
This has been such an amazing conversation. And as
Oh.
we wrap, I would love to know Jackson, what's your definition of peak masculinity?
Ooh.
Hmm.
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is it's a combination of your physical health, your emotional health, and your intellectual slash spiritual health, right? And as a man, if our bodies are not in optimal states of being and we don't have testosterone levels that we should and things like that, you're not going to have a great sex life. And so I think that that's not a place where I think that's a place where a lot of men are right now, is that they're sort of in this deficit in terms of their physiological, like health wise. Um, but it's optimal health, optimal T, communication skills, vulnerability, and just showing up and being the best you can be, and like respect and honoring yourself first and then your partner, right? And doing those things in a way that feels really integrated and aligned for you. Um, Men, we often we sacrifice a lot, right? We do a lot of things for our partners when we are really in an aligned masculine state, and getting to the point where like we love doing it, right? Because we know that it's we're the protectors of the world, right? That's like this peak masculine. So you need to have all of those buttons checked in order to be this figure, right? For yourself first, and then like filling up your own cup to make sure you're there, and then family, kids, partner, lover, whatever, all those things around you. So I don't have like a one-liner, but
No, no
it's
one
sort
liner.
of sort of all of it.
I love that.
Mm.
And what would you say is the highest or most ultimate purpose from your experience with all what you said, that a man can experience in his lifetime?
Mm. So when a man finds his like the highest level of engagement is really when he is a vessel for source or higher power or whatever it is flowing through him. And when he is in flow state, as often as humanly possible. So I believe that everyone in here is really just a vessel for source energy to flow through and to be activated. And as a man, if you can find that thing that activates your source energy the most, and or highest power or God or whatever you want to call it, allowing it to come through you unfettered, totally aligned, powerful, grounded, that's fucking power. That is true power. It's not money. It's not this. All that stuff comes as a result of it. But it's more about where am I in like being a microphone for whatever it is that's important to you, as being a man on the planet. So that's sort of that's how I feel. It took me a long time to figure that out. It took me like 38 years to really get into like, oh wow, like I feel in flow when I do this thing. Some people it's athletics and sports and whatever, and some people it's other things. But that to me is the peak is peak masculinity.
Mm.
No,
Really beautiful, soulful answer. I love the details of it. And
no.
what do you think would be something that women could really benefit from hearing or exploring in order to meet a man in his peak masculinity and become her like ultimate peak feminine self?
Mm. So learn as much as you can about how men operate. Don't withhold sex just
Mm,
because you want to. Understand that the man is hopefully trying to do certain things, and if he's not, then you need to like kindly let him know. But having like the most compassion, I think, is key. And adoring him and making him feel wanted and needed. Because if he doesn't, then he's gonna go someplace else where he's gonna feel more wanted and needed. And
mm,
so I think that like being his biggest cheerleader, his biggest supporter, um, women are a lot stronger than men, I think, in general, like emotionally and vulnerably. Like you have skills and powers that men don't have. And so you have to recognize, like we have physical power, but you guys have different kinds of power. So recognizing that like um, there's certain things that you can do to help him elevate himself, right? So that he feels important to you in your world, is going to make him want to be your protector, right? That's why one of the things like men are the protectors of the world. They protect their families. They put up structures and foundations. They protect their women. And in order to do that, I think the man needs to feel like he's number one in your world, you
mm,
know? So,
mm. Oh my gosh, I love your heart and I love
oh,
what you're saying.
what
But
great questions. This is so beautiful. This is different from every other experience I've had, and I love it. And I'm so happy
I
that we
mean,
get a chance to do this.
yeah, you know me.
I
I
know,
do things the same as everybody else.
I know, I know. I love that.
Yeah, I wanted to really bring out a different side of you that I know and that I love, and
Mm,
that I think would really be beneficial for people to experience what I experience as the beautiful balance of a peak masculine. You're
yeah,
strong, but you're soft. You're
yeah.
sensual, but you're also a warrior, and it's this beautiful um, culmination of all the work that you've done. And I really wanted to highlight and show not just what people saw on social media, but the person and
Hmm.
soul that I know, and
Thank
what's
you.
possible for women to also experience with the man who's done the work. And so, yeah, thank you for all your good work, babe.
Thank you, Josephina. You are the best, and I love you.
Um, love you too.
Yeah.
Love you too. And any final little word, little last nugget sprinkle before we wrap?
You can find me at naturaljackson.com for supplements for men, realintimatedynamics.com, which is where I have courses for men and for women, about intimacy and healthy levels of sexual function. And Get Natural Jackson is my social media. Yeah, those are the three
Oh,
spots.
yeah. We'll be posting all that in the show
All
notes as
right, perfect.
well. And such a pleasure, my love. And thank you for
Thank
being
you.
on.
Oh, I love it. That was great.
Yes. All right.